in addition to figuring out all of this Zoom stuff, we got to figure out the Facebook Live. All right, I'm going to click the live. So Dominica, do you want to get back onto the presentation? And then
Yep, I'll go ahead and share the main screen. Yep.
And Francesca, if you can just put everyone on mute except for myself, Prosecutor Worthy, and Commissioner Marecki. Thank you. All right, here we go. Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. Good evening, residents of Plymouth, Canton, Northville, Livonia, and everyone else who has joined us here this evening. Welcome to our town hall with Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy. My name is Melissa Daub, and I'm the Wayne County Commissioner for Canton Township, Plymouth Township, and the City of Plymouth. Did I say, I'm sorry, let me start over. My name is Melissa Daub. I'm the Wayne County Commissioner for Canton Township, Plymouth Township, and the City of Plymouth. I'm joined here tonight by my co-host and fellow Commissioner, Terry Marecki, who represents Northville Township, the City of Northville, and most of Livonia. We are joined tonight by our guest of honor, Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy, who will be giving a presentation on how her office operates and is responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, domestic violence during the stay-at-home order, reducing jail population, the prosecutor's sexual assault kit initiative, and more. So a few housekeeping items before we begin. We will be keeping everyone on mute in order to reduce background noise. There will be a question and answer portion to this event. So if you would like to submit a question for the prosecutor, there are a couple of ways to do so. You can email your question to district10@waynecounty.com, or you can enter your question in the chat box on Zoom or Facebook Live. If you're new to Zoom, you can probably find the chat box at the bottom of your screen, or if you're in full screen mode and you don't see that option right now, try hitting the escape button so that you can see the controls again. We also have a link to a sign-in form in the chat box on Zoom and Facebook Live, and we would really appreciate it if you could sign in. As Wayne County Commissioner for District 10, it is truly an honor to serve the community I grew up in. From my first day in office, I have worked hard to increase transparency in county government. These town halls are one way that I can bring Wayne County from Detroit, our county seat, to the western Wayne suburbs. Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy received her undergraduate degree in economics and political science from the University of Michigan. She earned her law degree from Notre Dame Law School. In 1984, she began her legal career at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. In 2004, she was appointed by a majority of the Wayne County Circuit Court judges to the position of Wayne County Prosecutor. In 2008, Worthy charged and successfully prosecuted ex-mayor of Detroit, Kwame Kilpatrick, and his former chief of staff, Christine Beatty. Worthy created the first elder abuse unit in the history of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. This unit handles all cases involving elderly and vulnerable adults and focuses on the unique needs of senior citizens when they are victims of crime. The prosecutor is working on a massive backlog of unprocessed rape kits that were discovered by one of her assistants in an abandoned warehouse in Detroit in 2009. It was determined that 11,341 rape kits have been sitting in that warehouse unprocessed for a decade or more. Prosecutor Worthy is featured in the HBO documentary, I Am Evidence, which examines the rape kit crisis around the country. Worthy has been a persistent advocate for witnesses who risk their lives to come to court and testify. Due to her tireless advocacy, the Wayne County Commission has awarded funds solely to be used to protect witnesses. This important allotment continues today. And now it is my honor to introduce to you our Wayne County Prosecutor, Kym Worthy.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here, to be, in a way, back to the communities which I held my first town hall back in November, a couple of years ago, I think. It was overwhelmingly attended. It went very well. And so I'm happy to come to you again. I'm going to be talking tonight about a number of issues, and then I look forward to your questions at the end. This is a really, I know you've heard it a billion times, but these are unprecedented times, and it has been for our office as well. And we've had to do a number of things to try to be current, to try to keep our staff safe, to try to keep the citizens safe, and to try to keep going during the COVID virus. And one of the first things we did is we limited people coming into the office. You know, we're an office that's open to the public, but during this pandemic, it became clear rather early on that we could not do that. We had a number of, and over 100 police officers from the city of Detroit that tested positive. We were having Wayne County deputies test positive. Their numbers grew. And then occasionally when my prosecutors would be in court, when we were still going to court live, we would have a defense attorney or two test positive, some court staff. And so it became very apparent to me that we had to make some drastic changes. And so one of the first things that we did is we made sure that the public was not able to come into the office. We offered a press release. We have all the reasons on our Facebook page. And it's not that we don't want to see you, it's because we want to keep you and our staff safe. And so we have police officers coming in and out of our office all the time with our warrant requests. And as you know, if a police department has done an investigation on a crime, they will bring that package down to our office and we'll decide if we're going to issue charges. And if charges, then which charges, and sometimes we don't issue charges, we'll deny those charges. And sometimes we will have to send the investigation back for more investigation. Well, your community, for the most part, has always sent it down by fax or email. So we don't take your officers off the street and have them sitting in our office waiting because we're a very busy office. We're one of the busiest in the countries. My prosecutors do more cases per prosecutor than any place else in the nation. And so we're extremely busy. And at any time we could have over a dozen or dozens of police officers waiting and dozens of civilians waiting to come in. So while my policy has always been, if you're the victim of a crime, you must come into the office so we can do a face-to-face interview. One of the things that we did is we said we have to do it by phone now to keep not only our victims and our witnesses safe, but our prosecutors safe as well. And we didn't need anyone bringing in the virus into the building or taking it out of the building, that you may have gotten it inside the building. So the city of Detroit was really one of our only cities that was coming in physically, and we were doing face-to-face work with their warrant requests. And I had a long conversation with Chief Craig, and I said, we cannot do that anymore, especially when his commander of the homicide unit died and the Detroit precincts were infiltrated with the COVID virus at that time. I'm happy to say that's not the case now, but again, we couldn't have police officers bring it into the building. So we had to move very quickly and make it so that we can have them as well fax our warrants over. And so then we said the public, we can't have the public come in. We made sure we had someone manning the phones so that we can communicate with the public. And again, we opened up the first ever, even though I've been doing this for a while, a Facebook page where we posted all the information that you would need to be able to deal with our office. We made sure that people answered their phones. We made sure that we stayed current. We made sure that we had stayed in contact with all of our victims so they knew what was going on. And at the same time, the court was moving to remote access as well. So we started working remotely, and the courts then, again, the Third Circuit Court especially, we were able to test equipment and work remotely and do emergency bond motions and some other hearings remotely. So people wouldn't have to come in, there wouldn't be face-to-face contact, and we could keep everybody safe. And that was our main goal. And so that's worked out relatively well. I know we haven't done any trials for quite a while. We haven't done any bench trials or non-jury trials. They will be starting to back up this summer, and we'll figure out how to do all that. And I believe the jury trials are adjourned to at least until August or September. So again, for the safety of not only people charged with the crime, not only for the inmates in the jail, but also for the court staff, the deputies, the judges, the prosecutors, the defense lawyers, and everybody involved, that was the best way to do things. In our office also, we started doing, we had the county was able to secure equipment. At first, this equipment was very hard to get. I purchased a number of cleaning supplies before we really got going, took them around to the office. When we could still get Clorox and wipes and Lysol wipes and hand sanitizer. We can't find that stuff anywhere now. So the county then had put in an order, but it took a long time for it to come in. And thankfully, the Department of Homeland Security has been very gracious and has outfitted our office with masks and hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies. So we have 4 locations. We have the Lincoln Hall of Justice, and that's right near Wayne State, kind of across the street from Wayne State, off of Warren, off of the freeway there. You can see it as you go down I-75. We also have offices in 400 Monroe, which is the same building where Fishbones is downtown. And of course, we have the top 3 floors of the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, the 10th floor, the 11th floor, and the 12th floor. And we also have 2 floors in the Guardian building that house exclusively the 16th floor and the 33rd floor that house exclusively our rape kit unit, which I'll talk about a little later on in the presentation. So during the time, we also had, through the graciousness of the Third Circuit Court, we also had Frank Murphy, who's been deep cleaned twice to make sure that we have the safest, cleanest environment that we can. We still have some issues that we have to deal with, but we're trying to deal with them as they come. We also, the Lincoln Hall of Justice was also deep cleaned, as well as 400 Monroe, and also the Guardian building. So that's another thing we want to do for the safety of not only the staff, but everybody else that comes into that building. And so we also have now had plexiglass installed. So when we do open up to the public, plexiglass, they call them sneeze guards. So when we do open up to the public, we will be able to protect the public safety as well as the people who work in my office. The other thing that we've seen, and these are some disturbing trends really. We have seen more violent crime than we care to see at this point. We have had a big issue with domestic violence because, as you know, with the governor's stay-at-home orders, we have people, of course, staying home. We have people that unfortunately are not working now, very unfortunately, and they're home with their families 24/7, as many of us are experiencing now. And so in order to comply with that, sometimes we have people that have committed the act of domestic violence, and now they are home with the person they abused on a 24/7 basis. So what we've also tried to do on our website, if anyone that's listening to me has those kinds of issues or knows anybody, we have a lot of resources listed on our website as to people who are having issues during this time with domestic violence and child abuse. Our special victims unit handles these cases. Our special victims unit, it has domestic violence, the sexual assault kit unit, the rape kit, the rape unit, as well as the sexual assault kit unit. We also have our elder abuse unit, our child abuse unit, and it's a very busy unit. It deals with all of our special victims. And so they're the ones that are dealing with all of these cases now of our escalating domestic violence. You know, we do, and this may surprise some, we do in our office over 8,000 cases per year. It kind of goes between 6,000 and 8,000 cases of domestic violence that are presented to us every year across the county of Wayne. It's not endemic to one particular city. We have this issue all over the county. And this year, I should say last year, 2019, we had a record high of over 8,800 of cases of domestic violence that were presented to our office. We don't, of course, we can't issue every case because we have to make sure that we have charges that we can prove all these cases beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a legal standard, but we probably charge anywhere from about 3,600 to 3,800 cases of domestic violence per year. The other 4,400 or so, we are very careful because unfortunately some of them can turn into domestic violence homicides, and we have had some of these during the pendency of the pandemic. Very sad, very brutal, and no one wants to deal with these, but we have to. So again, if you know anybody that needs any kind of help, you can turn to our website or call our office, and we'll be happy to provide some resources for you. And so these are the kinds of things that we have to do during this pandemic. We are working with the court to figure out how we're going to do jury trials as we start doing them again. Another thing that we started doing, personally I've been involved with, is at the Wayne County Jail. Because of the fear of the virus spreading through the jail, we had to take some aggressive action, and we started at the beginning of March in making sure we reduced the jail population. And so this is a very tedious process because not only do we have to be concerned with the inmates and staff inside the jail, we have to be worried about public safety. And we simply cannot be a part of releasing anyone from the jail who we believe was a danger to the public. So we started with, and I'll be as brief as I can, it's a very long process, but we started with the people who were just serving time on the weekend. They had been sentenced to serve time on the weekend, and most of them were released. We then went to the people who were serving work release time, and that means they were going to work during the day and coming back to the jail at night. So of course, it's obvious we didn't want people bringing the virus into and out of the jail. And so we started, and we looked at everyone, every single case individually. We talked about them. We talked about the reason why they were there. We talked about any judge's order. If they had already been convicted and they were awaiting sentence, they were waiting whether they were going to be going to the Michigan Department of Corrections or receiving a jail sentence or getting probation. If they're waiting for that, they're in the jail. So if they've already been sentenced, we look at what they have done. We pulled files. We go to the court computers. We pulled our case files. My staff was involved. I was forever sending emails. I need to know about this person. I need to know about this person. So we could balance what they have done and the health inside of the jail with the public safety. So we were very, very careful when it came to domestic violence. Again, I didn't want someone that was in the jail who had been convicted and was serving time in the jail for domestic violence to again be released. They had to prove that they had someplace else to go. And many of those I could not then recommend to the chief judge, who's the only one who can, by the way, administratively release someone. But we make a recommendation along with defense attorneys, a representation from the ACLU, the jail personnel who are heavily invested in doing a great job, as well as sometimes we consulted the jail medical personnel. So we went from work release to people to pregnant women that were there. We looked at every category that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, said would be the most vulnerable people to catch the virus. The pregnant women were released. We also looked at people over the age of 65 that had comorbidity. That means they had some kind of health issue. And not all of them, of course, were released because some people were in jail, either awaiting sentence or awaiting transport to the Michigan Department of Correction for a first-degree murder. So obviously, that's a huge public safety. So none of those were released. We didn't release anyone that was charged with murder in the second degree. We didn't release anybody that was charged with any assault offense, armed robbery, assault with intent to murder, carjacking, elder abuse, child abuse. And so we did release a few people who were charged with some of those offenses, not the murder or the armed robbery. If they were going to either a different residence, if they had a serious health issue, or the victim in those cases agreed that they could be released if they had someplace else to go or to live. And so in all of the assaultive cases, we contacted the victim of the crime. We let them know that there was a possibility that they would be released. We received their consent or their feeling about what should happen. And we relayed all that. I relayed all that personally to the chief judge. We then went to anyone, and I'm not gonna go through all the areas, anyone that had a health issue, cancer or hypertension or HIV or Hep C or cardiac issues or cancer or any kind of hypertension. We looked at all of them individually with the assistance of the jail medical personnel, so we could ask questions, and so we could make some good decisions. And so again, this process has been taking place since the beginning of March. Public safety is always in the back of our minds. Again, we let the victims know. And so now the jail population has been reduced from 1,388 at the beginning of March to now, the number I believe I heard today was just under 800, 798. And so the jail, all the inmates in the jail have been tested. And so again, we're taking all precautions, not only to protect the inmates and the personnel, the deputies who work in the jail every single day, the medical personnel who work in the jail every single day, to protect everybody. We've taken some aggressive steps. And so that has consumed probably 4 or 5 hours, literally my day in the very beginning. And now it's probably down to about 1 or 2 hours a day that we do that. We conference, we have Judge Kenny, who is actually a Livonia resident, I think, is the person who makes the final decision. And it's been, you don't want to say a pleasure, but it's been great to work with everybody. We all have the same concerns in mind, even the attorneys for the inmates, justice, safety, and what's good for everybody. And so that's part of what we've had to do because of the pandemic as well. One of the other things I wanted to mention about the pandemic is, and I've mentioned the stay-at-home orders, I've mentioned domestic violence, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that. I've mentioned child abuse and the things that we're seeing because children are in the home. I'll be the first to say I can't stand this homeschooling. If I wanted to be a teacher, I would be one. I've always had enormous respect for teachers, and now it's grown tenfold. On my mother's side, I come from a family of teachers and educators, and so principals. And so we've been around it all my life, but I don't want to be one. And it's been trying to work, and you want your children to be educated, of course. The teachers that we have involved are so dedicated. And enormous respect, even more than I already had, for teachers and what they're trying to do and educate our children during this pandemic. So it's challenging for us all. But one of the things that we have seen as some kind of disturbing trends, and I'm not going to talk about these cases too much because they're still pending. We had a case that I'll just say what we put in the media already. We had 2 cases of a man who knew he was positive with the virus and went to 2 local hospitals, when I say local, Wayne County hospitals, and allegedly spit on doctors and nurses and health workers, saying he wanted them to get the virus. So of course we charged him. We have other cases that we're still looking at, probably about 10 or so that we're looking at that are directly COVID related. People assaulting people, spitting in people's faces, and it's all over the state. We've had a murder in Genesee County over the COVID virus. We've had attacking our grocery workers who are going in every day and trying to service us all. And you and I probably can't wrap our brain around people who act like that. But again, that's what we're seeing. Another thing that we're seeing, and I was asked to speak about what we're seeing, is drag racing. And that's something that none of us expected to see because people are staying at home and because there are less people driving on the street. We have some people who think it's a good idea to race down Wayne County main streets. And so we've had some injuries. We are looking at some cases. I don't think we've had any death cases yet, even though our fatal cases, our traffic cases are going up. They're skyrocketing. I don't know if that's directly because of the pandemic, but they've been going up for a while. I don't know why. Just some serious accidents, but that's something we'll look at and try to get a handle on later. But these COVID-related drag racing cases are something we're taking a serious look at. It was really our out county chiefs and probably some of your chiefs that brought this to our attention. And so we are paying very strict attention to that and seeing what we can do about that. So those are the other thing that we had to do. I forgot to mention this before I go on to a different topic. I think you heard me mention that we had to obviously start working remotely, as many of you are. And so we weren't set up to do that. In other words, we didn't have the equipment to do it. We didn't have the equipment to send everybody home with a laptop. We certainly can't have them with office information on their personal laptops. So that's something that we had to do very quickly. And that's been a little challenging. I think the Wayne County IT department has worked miracles in assisting us. And many workers besides just my office and working remotely. And so it's been a real challenge, but I think it's working very well. We are able to do our warrants. We're able to charge our cases. We're able to catch up on our backlogs. We were able to communicate with our victims. We're able to communicate with our law enforcement partners, both federal and state and local. We're able to do almost everything that we were able to do in the office remotely. And so we've also had to take some more drastic actions. Those of you who are lawyers know what discovery is, but just let me explain. Discovery is whenever we have a case that we charge and a case that we're going to take to court, we have to provide the defense attorneys with all of the information that we have. All the information that we have, whether it's from the medical examiner or from other experts, from hospitals, whether it's information from our police partners, we have to give them everything that we have. And this can be surveillance video from Detroit's Green Light. It can be stock car video. It can be body camera video. And video that a lot of people have video on the sides of their houses when things happen. The police can gather that information and we can use that information to charge cases. And so we have to make all of that available to the defense lawyers. And so as you can imagine, that's a massive undertaking. Sometimes in one homicide case, we may have discs, 10, 12, 20, I'm not exaggerating, 50 discs in one homicide case that we have to turn over. So we had started running a pilot about how that was all going to work. And I hope I don't say anything wrong. My IT director will hopefully correct me, but I'm trying not to say anything wrong. I'm not a techie, but we've had to get it all in the cloud and have it in what we call evidence.com. And we had a pilot going on, but when this happened, we had to then all of the information on all the cases that we do had to be uploaded and put there and deal with. I hope I'm saying this right. And so we also have, that's one of our ways of getting discovery to our defense lawyers, because when we closed our building down to the public, we also had defense attorneys coming in every day, talking about cases, talking about plea offers, getting information from us in person. We would hand over our discovery, and then we had to do that all now electronically. So it's been a huge undertaking. And again, Mark Hinderling, who runs all of that, has been probably on the phone 24/7, trying to do everything that he has had to do and everything I asked him to do. So again, it's been a huge undertaking, and our office is, I guess, dragged into the 21st century now, because we didn't have any of that. I mean, I tell people all the time, we're not running DOS or Windows 1, if there is such a thing, but we're really, really far behind the times. Many of the major prosecutors' offices and DA's offices and other offices across the country, especially in our major cities, they've been paperless for a very long time. And even many of our prosecutors across the state, because Michigan is a state of 83 counties. Wayne County, of course, is one of those counties. We are the largest by far. And so many of our smaller counties and our mid-sized counties and some of our other larger counties are already paperless. And so it wasn't as big of a transition for them as it was for us. And so the Wayne County Executive is very supportive of law enforcement, very supportive, hugely supportive of public safety. And certainly we've been talking about all these issues for a long time, but now I don't know if we can go back. And so we don't have a case management system or any of that. We still have paper files. We don't have index cards anymore, but we still have paper files. And so we will hopefully this will escalate us getting to where we need to be. But we've had to do all this very, very fast. And I hope that we've served all of you well. I hope that when you've tried to call my office, you have gotten through and talked to a human being. I hope if you're a victim of a crime, you've kept in contact with, not you kept in contact with us, but we have kept in contact with you and answered any of your questions you have. Please bear with us. There's going to be a number of what we call adjournments, postponements in some of these trials, because again, we can't bring jurors into the courtroom, and 16 usually, sometimes 14 usually, and sometimes 16 depending on the length of the trial. And jurors, like you see on TV, are sitting right next to each other, elbow to elbow. And we obviously can't have that going on now. So we had to figure out how to do all that. We're working on that. I'm reaching out to my colleagues across the state and country. I know the judges are doing the same, just trying to get the best thing to protect you when you come into the courthouse. And so we don't want to subject you to anything that we shouldn't subject you to, and we've got to figure that all out. Because certainly our courtrooms are not built for having 6 feet apart from each juror, and from the defense attorney and the defendant and the prosecutors and the police officers and the witnesses that come through. So we're figuring that all out. And with our biggest concern is you and the public being protected when we come into the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, where we do our criminal trials. And the same for Lincoln Hall of Justice, the juvenile justice that we do. And so again, we've got to figure it all out, but our main concern is keeping you safe. So that's a long way of saying that we've had a lot of changes, as I'm sure all of you have had. Again, a lot of information is on our Facebook page, our website. You can always call or email our office if you have any questions, and we will try to get back to you as soon as we can. And if we are failing in doing that, please let me know, because I need to fix that if that's the case. So any of you have had a negative experience or we haven't gotten back to you fast enough, please know that we're doing our best. We are overwhelmed like everybody else is, but still we need to make sure that we keep you first and foremost in our minds. I want to give you an update, because as was mentioned by Commissioner Daub, we discovered back in 2009, August of 2009, 16th or 17th or something, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago now, obviously. This August will be 11, and we've been steadily working on it since then. We discovered 11,341 untested abandoned rape kits in the Detroit Police Department, annexed to where they were keeping evidence. Without going into all of that, it was something I had never heard of. I didn't know that anybody stockpiled rape kits. I soon learned that this was a national issue, international really, but a national issue certainly. And that, I think you heard, I'm a Wolverine. I went to the greatest university in the history of the world, the University of Michigan. And everybody knows about the Big House, where we play for. Everybody knows the Big House holds over 110, I have a reason for bringing it up, although I always talk about Michigan, 110,000 on any given Saturday. I don't know about this year. I don't know if there's gonna be a football season, sadly, but, and so there are so many untested abandoned rape kits in this country. If you attach a victim to each kit, there are known to be or thought to be over 400,000. And the reason why I bring up the Big House, because if there's a graphic and you can picture the number of untested rape kits and the victims attached are enough to fill up the Big House 4 times. So that's how pervasive this issue is. I didn't know when they were discovered almost 11 years ago that that was even a thing that was going on. We leapt into action as fast as we could. At that particular time, it was costing $1,200 to $1,500 a kit to have them tested. And all of you know, a rape kit is when a woman, usually a woman, but we had children and some men, most of them attached to women overwhelmingly, most of them women of color overwhelmingly, over 86%. And when a person is sexually assaulted, they can choose to have a rape kit done. Not everybody that's sexually assaulted has a rape kit done, and we certainly don't force that. We are very fortunate in Wayne County to have Wayne County Safe, the Wayne County Sexual Assault Forensic Examiners run by the wonderful Kym. And we have 5 locations that they can go to in Wayne County if you are sexually assaulted. Most rural places in this state, they have to go to hospitals and clinics, but we have Wayne County Safe, and it takes care of everyone. And we still have some rape kits that are done at hospitals as well. So a rape kit is done as it's a 4 to 10 hour examination after a person has been sexually assaulted in the most intimate of ways. And the hope is that any evidence collecting from hairs and fibers and saliva and anything that can found, saliva on breasts or anything that can found, every orifice of a person's body is explored and plucked and prodded and you know, from the fingernails to the toenails to the eyebrow, everything is taken and put in a kit. And the reason why usually women agree to do that is because they are hoping that a forensic scientist can examine the contents of that kit and hopefully find enough genetic material to make a profile. And hopefully and there's not enough in every kit. And this profile is entered into CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System, I think it stands for. There's statewide, and they also have the FBI nationwide. And you can hopefully get a match once this profile, if there is a profile that we can have, is entered into the system. And there are 2 kinds of what we call hits, H-I-T-S, that can come from this. And I'm being very basic now. And so it can you can put the profile on the system, and it can tell you the name of who that DNA belongs to. So that's a direct hit. There's also what's called a case-to-case association. And what that means is, if there's a sexual assault that happens in Livonia, and a sexual assault kit is done, and the scientists find enough genetic material in that kit to make a profile, they enter it into CODIS, enter into the DNA system, and it's there. At the same time, or maybe a year later, or a year before, there's a sexual assault in Phoenix. And again, the forensic examiners in Phoenix, the forensic scientists, I should say, in Phoenix, find enough DNA material, genetic material in that profile to enter it into their system. And then it matches the one that happened in Livonia. So we don't know who it is, but we know we have a serial rapist. We know we have the same person committed the rape in Phoenix that committed in Livonia. So again, one thing that people forget sometimes is that our DNA system, our DNA hits, can help solve crimes other than just sexual assaults. It helps law enforcement solve murders and other rapes, of course, and robberies and B&Es, breaking and entering, home invasions we call them here, and auto theft. And so it's a very useful tool that we have at our disposal. It's one tool in our toolkit, but it's a very useful tool. And the reason I take you through all that is because these women this over 11,341 women, men and children, who did this rape kit done, again, their lives were virtually sitting on a shelf while nobody paid attention to them. That would never happen in a homicide case. We wouldn't step over a body and keep going. And so I suspect it could, because it's a crime that happens mainly to women. There's all kinds of reasons why this happens. Rape culture, all kinds of things I can talk about forever. But suffice it to say, we had that problem here. And I said a couple of things. First of all, I don't care if any of these cases didn't happen on my watch. We'll do everything we can to make sure we bring justice to as many of these victims as we can. So again, we had to set about getting them tested. And again, like I told you at the time, anywhere from $12,000 to $1,200 to $1,500 dollars to test one kit. So basically, we went on a campaign. We had to raise the money. We shouldn't have to do that, but we had to raise the money. And the County of Wayne, years later, was in a financial position to be when the CEO Evans came in. He had pledged to help us with this, and he put his money where his mouth was. And all the commissioners voted unanimously to provide $1 million per year for, I think, 2 or 3 years. It dropped down to 800,000, and I don't know what's going to happen now with our next budget season. So we are able to put a task force together, work on it. We received a lot of help from, I'm sure you all know, Marecki, who is the star of Law and Order SVU and her organization, Joyful Heart. We received a lot of help from the Obama administration because that's who was in office at the time. This is not a commercial, certainly not a political commercial, but Joe Biden helped a lot with that as well. And so assisted us in getting millions of dollars from the state government, from the federal government. Also, about 4 years, I think it was 2013, we received money from the state of Michigan, the legislature, who also voted, I think, almost unanimously. I don't know if that ever has happened before. And they provided $4 million to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab to get these kids tested. And so I'm happy to report that they're all tested now. We have over 200 convictions of rapists that would not have been convicted before off the street. Many of them have raped many women. We have over, I believe the number is 211, I think is the latest from the April stats that we have convictions. We have over 820 serial rapists identified from the testing that's happened. And that means just within our project, just within one city, one state, and one county. And so we have over 823 serial rapists, and that means they have raped more than once just within our project, just within the kids that were found in Detroit in August of 2009. And so even if that's not disturbing enough, and as I say this all the time, we also found out through, and that's why I went through the time to tell you about POTUS and the national hits. We have hits from our project to 39 other states in the United States. So we have hits out of California and Massachusetts and New York. There's only 10 states in the entirety of the United States that hasn't been affected by our project here through our testing. And so 40 states in the United States have been affected by the kids that were found here in the city of Detroit. And some of our serial rapists have raped 15 or 20 times. And so you've heard a lot on the news, I think, about some of this. We continue that work today, but I just wanted to give you a little update that work still goes on. We still work on that every day. In fact, I believe we had another case charged, I believe it was sometime this week. Sometimes I don't get to my email right away. I get over 1,000 emails a day. And so there was sometime this week we even charged another rape kit case, so we continue to do that work. I wanted to mention, and I know that Commissioner Daub and Commissioners Daub and Marecki have a copy of this letter, and I know Mr. Nix does as well, and others that I had the pleasure of visiting him. And I think I've been to just about every office here, talking to elected officials in every city that's represented here. And I visited in the last 18 months, every single Wayne County city, every single Wayne County community, except for I think 7 or 8 or 9. And so we wanted to go to each city. We wanted to find out what issues they were having with my office, if any. We wanted to let them know that we were doing. We wanted to let them know. The meeting usually consisted of either the mayor or the supervisor, sometimes council members, sometimes fire chiefs, sometimes judges, always the police chief and police representatives. And so we would talk and spend at least, I think, an hour to an hour and a half just talking about the individual city and what the issues were and what we could be doing better for them. And so we've talked about all of this. And I wanted to mention, and I provided the letter, about 2 years ago, we started, this is our 2nd year, and we'll do it again this year in September, if there is a school year. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but every year we have written a letter and sent it to the superintendents of every community in Wayne County. And this letter is about school safety, school threats. We've been, and I think they're going to put it on the screen, there it is. And so the latest one we sent in September of 2009. And what we do, we talk about, because since Parkland, we've had here in Wayne County over 150, I think it's closer to 175, over 150 school threats. Whether it's a threat to shoot up a school, or whether it's a threat to bomb a school, or whether it's a threat to, and somehow disrupt school activities. And so most of the threats, of course, were not substantiated. It's typical that we would get one where someone would call in into the school and say they're threatened to either blow up or shoot up a school. Most often, though, it would be placed on social media, and a student would see it and contact the parent, and the parent would contact the school or the police, and that's usually how we find out. And so we wanted people to know that this is very serious. Even if it's done and someone thinks it's a joke, or someone's trying to get out of a test, or anything, we wanted parents to know that this is not, it's not funny, and it's not funny at all. Each and every time this happens, and over 150 times in Wayne County in the last 2 years or so, each and every time it happens, it's a massive undertaking, budgetary-wise, economically, to the community where this happens. We try to work globally with the police department, my office, with the parents, who are almost always cooperative, but not always, and with school personnel. And we want to make sure that students are safe. We have to investigate each and every threat. No one wants to be that school that doesn't take it seriously, and we don't have any of those schools or people in Wayne County, or any of those leadership in Wayne County. The leadership in Wayne County takes these things seriously. We investigate them seriously. The police department often has to work around the clock. We may have to make sure that we get to that threat. We want to make sure that nothing happens. And so we will do search warrants. We will do all kinds of things in conjunction with these threats. And there are laws that we have, better laws now. They still need to be better. And so we had a thought that, why don't we let parents know from the very beginning, so they can sit down and talk to their children about this, so they can be told what the law is. You can face, a child can face, a teenager. It's usually a lot of these come from our juvenile division, because our juvenile division handles all cases up to the age of 16. So we have middle school students and high school students that do this. And then we do some of them if they're 17 or older, who make these threats to the schools. And so again, they're very serious cases. We wrote this letter, and we have it available in Arabic and Spanish as well. And we wanted the school system to push them out to all the parents around the beginning of school. And hopefully the parents will talk to their children about this. We have had children, or teens, young adults, that have been accepted to major universities. Well, it happened at least twice, but accepted to a major university. Once the university found out that the threat was made by the student, they disinvited that student from the university. And in that case, we didn't happen to charge, because again, when this happens and if it's substantiated, and you don't have to actually carry out the threat to be charged, to be run afoul of the law. And we wanted parents to know that this can affect your child in many ways, even if there's never a charge. And they can have lifelong ramifications. And so the letter lays out, I hope you've seen it. If you haven't, then certainly you can contact my office, but I know that many cities have put this on their websites. Many of the police officials have put it on their website. It's on our website. And again, it just lays out what the law is. It lays out the ramifications of what can happen. And we've had many of these cases. So I'm hoping that this letter in some way has helped the situation. And so I have been stopped on the street many times about parents that have received that letter. And so hopefully it's getting out. And I just want all of you to know about it. And it's just very useful information. It's not funny, it's not a threat. Please talk to your children about these. And we don't want their lives to be forever tainted by something that they did, even if they didn't mean it, but it's very serious. So I also wanted to talk about, again, it's a very long process that we go through. It's a collaborative process. And I wanted to also, I want to just check the time real quickly, I'm good. I also wanted to talk something that's very kind of emanated out of Canton. The Canton Police Department has just been masterful at bringing us information when it comes to large-scale retail fraud or shoplifting rings. And I don't even do it justice when I call it that. And so as a result of working mainly with Canton and with some other departments, again, Canton have done the heavy lifting on many of these, because it affects our big box stores that you have in your areas. It affects some of our smaller stores like Target and Walmart and IKEA and many of these stores, as well as our local Rite Aid stores and our local CVS stores and other stores as well. And so they brought us a case years ago where they had been investigating for a long time, and we simply didn't have the personnel to be able to deal with it appropriately. So I signed it to actually Fadwa Hamoud, who's now the state of Michigan Solicitor General, and she worked up the case, and we found out, I think it was 19 pawn shop owners, and I might have the facts a little bit wrong, but the pawn shop owners that were hiring, for lack of a better, hiring in quotes, air quotes, usually people that were addicted to some kind of substance, to go into these stores, and they would actually provide them with a grocery list. I want a lawnmower, I want liquor, I want baby formula, I want pots and pans or whatever. And they would actually go into these stores and steal this merchandise. So we want our stores that are here in Wayne County to be successful. We want our stores to stay here. We want to grow our economy here. We don't want anyone to leave because they have been fleeced over and over again by people who want to just help themselves to the merchandise and walk out the door. And so this is, we then formed our business, what we call a business protection unit, because one of these cases can take months and months and months to investigate and put together. In that first case that I talked about, I think, like I said, I believe there were 19 pawn shops, and we finally traced it to a big Tony's pawn shop, I believe it was called, in Wyandotte. And the pawn shop owners were buying this material, hiring these usually people addicted to substances to get these items, bring it to them, and they would then pawn it. And so, in our business that we're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And so we're not just big businesses and big box stores, but also smaller businesses. We really want to have a presence for our small business owners. And we really want to be able to protect anything that happens to them in terms of criminality. And so it's a very small unit. We have to try to keep it afloat. We only have 2 people in it. They have over 50 cases, 75 cases. And again, each one of these cases takes a long time to put together. And so it happened out of your area. And you pointed out to us a need that we really had to protect not only our individual citizens, but our economy, our big box stores. We want them to be in these communities. So we're very proud of this unit. The work is slow because again, it's so investigation heavy. And I want to tip my hat again to the Canton Police Department that really started all this going for us. Just an excellent job. The police chief, the current police chief was a big part of this as well. And so again, we're very proud of that. I want to just talk for a minute about elder abuse. As I said before, it's part of our SVU, our Special Victims Unit. We started this back in 2004 when I first took office. And we had at the time a child abuse unit, we had a domestic violence unit, and the children, of course, our protocol is up to the age of 16. We do, of course, criminal sexual conduct, rape of small children, it happens all the time. And we do physical abuse, of course. We were doing domestic violence, and we were really not servicing a very important demographic in Wayne County. And that was our seniors, our elders. And so we thought when we first formed this unit, we thought that we would be mainly dealing with, our seniors that were sexually assaulted in nursing homes, for example, our seniors that were killed, our seniors that were carjacked or robbed or their homes were broken into. That's what we thought we would be doing, or what I thought we would be doing mostly. And we found out that that wasn't the case at all. Most of our cases are financial exploitation and scams and stealing life fortunes, life savings of people who had retired, et cetera. So we focus on them. We focus on our seniors in this unit, and we have specially trained people. This is a unit we try hard to keep afloat. And so, again, it's very difficult work because sometimes our victims will have dementia. Some of our victims don't even know that they've been a victim of crime or Alzheimer's. And again, we have, unfortunately, many nursing home cases across the country, people who have just been left unattended. People, unfortunately, who have been sexually assaulted when they're, they can't get up and walk or anything. It's very sad. And again, we can't wrap our brains around this in normal brain activity, but it happens all the time. And so we are very, very passionate about this unit. We are fighting hard to keep it afloat. And we have done some very, very good work. And so if you're interested in any of the scams and anything like that we deal with on a regular basis, then certainly you can contact our office and we can get that information to us. And so again, that's another specialty unit we have. And so I kind of want to wrap up. I want to wrap up with one other area. And that's we have many of our police departments in your communities that are outfitted in body cameras or maybe thinking about it. And again, this presents another challenge to us, but a challenge we're always going to try to raise and meet our challenges. And so when we have a prosecutor that sits down and reviews a warrant, and remember I told you a warrant is a warrant package. It's information that the police department either emails or faxes to us. or brings down personally. And that gives us all the information about a case and all the information that we need to make a charging decision. And again, if we don't have all the information we need, we will send it back for more information. And we try to work very closely with our police partners. And so usually it would take an experienced prosecutor when they're doing like a drug raid case where a search warrant is gotten and you go into a home where drugs are being sold. Usually it would take an experienced prosecutor about half hour to look at the information they had, go through it, and issue a warrant or not issue a warrant. And, but now in the advent that we have now, we have scout car video, we have body cam video, and the body camera video and the surveillance video like I was talking about earlier. The body camera video is for each officer who comes to the scene. And when you have a search warrant, you don't just have one person knocking at the door. You have usually, and I don't know exactly, I have to think now, about 7 or 8 officers that can come. You have people that secure the perimeter in the back. You have people that, the first one in the door. You have what's called the ram person who knocks the door down. You have the officers who go in and conduct the search. So you can have many people at the front perimeter. So you can many officers during a search warrant raid. And we have to look at the body camera evidence from each and every officer and from each and every car that comes to the scene. And there's surveillance videos from the houses around there. And so it's gone from 30 minutes per case on a relatively simple drug case to almost a day because we have to review all this material. And so again, it's made prosecutors' offices across the country more challenging, but again, we have to really think about the tenet that we're really getting to, the search for justice, the search for the truth. And any information that's out there that we can use to make our decisions, we want to use. And so yes, it takes a much longer time. And yes, it can be a little more challenging, but we do our best to get through this material. And so we are fortunate that the Wayne County Commission did outfit us and give us the funds to have what we call an LTU. We basically hire young, brilliant, technologically savvy people. We have some wonderful people who work in the unit who will look at this video. And sometimes we have to remove things from the video. Now that doesn't mean that we take out things from it. We always have a video that's available with everything in it. So we have a copy that we remove things from. And when I say remove things from, this is what I mean. We had a case in Detroit a couple of years ago where a very well-known personality, television personality who since retired, was having her house stalked and having things happen and she wasn't safe. And the Detroit Police Department did a very good job about trying to protect her. And one day we were able, not we, but law enforcement was able to catch the person that was violating the premises and stalking this particular person, was able to catch her in the act. And the officers came with their body cameras on and they interviewed our victim. They got all of her personal information. And then one of the officers excused himself and went to a car where he had gotten a phone call from his wife. And that conversation was captured on video. And so when I'm saying we try to redact information, the personal information, the personal cell phone information, social security numbers and all that, we don't have to turn over to the defense. We have it available we have a fully unredacted copy that's always available for the defense to look at so they can see that we didn't tamper with anything and what we removed. And so we also, the personal conversation that took place in the car with the officer's wife had also no business and no relevance to the case. So again, we have these young people who look at this tape, they help us with trial, I don't know what we'd do without them. And so body cameras are great. And quite frankly, we have exonerated more police officers for brutality claims than the other way around. So everybody's trepidatious when they get to it, but it's helpful. And it's always good to have every tool that you can to get to the truth. And so I probably should stop there. I think I've been going for about an hour. And I know they want to give an opportunity for questions. So we've talked about a little bit of how the office works. We've talked a lot about what we've had to do to cope with this COVID virus. We've talked about school safety and school threats. The business protection unit, we've talked about elder abuse and child abuse and domestic violence and body cameras and things that happened during COVID. I could always talk about safe storage, but I think we're just about out of time, so.
Thank you so much, Prosecutor Worthy. We are going to do, just spend a little time. We did have a couple questions submitted from the public, so I'm gonna turn it over to Commissioner Marecki. I think, do you have the first question?
I do. And I'm just praying that my dogs aren't going to bark during this. So I just muted myself for a second here. But thank you so much, Madam Prosecutor, for the great presentation. We do have some questions that came in, and you covered so many items, and I'm going to try and modify this. So I'll do the first question here. You talked about your work with local police departments, with the warrants, police gathering information, the school threats, the body cameras. Are there any other things that your office does to work directly with our local police departments?
Yes. Well, like I said, that probably is the bulk of it there, because we work mainly as close as we can on our cases. We are going to be, one of the things that I know I've talked to you about many times, I know you can co-sign this, is one of the things that we don't have in Wayne County that I would really love to have is we don't have the connectivity and the ability to talk directly with all of our police departments electronically. It's something that I've been wanting to do since 2005, and hopefully before I'm gone from this job, then I hope to have that done. So that's one thing that I would love to work with even more with our departments. In this day and age, we ought to be able to press a button and be able to talk to people immediately. But again, everybody has different systems and different servers and different this and that, and we're not able to do that now. But that's the reason why we made these face-to-face visits, because we wanted to find out how we could do things better. Sometimes, and one thing that we work on constantly is sometimes police officers will bring down warrants, and they're called not in custody warrants. And what that means is the person is not currently in custody, but they want us to issue charges so they can go arrest these people, arrest them. And sometimes they can be, some of them can be serious charges. And so because of our issues that we have from time to time, we have backed up warrants. So sometimes they will call us and say, you know, that warrant, you've had that not in custody warrant for months, or you've had it for weeks. And so we are really making an effort now to have better communication. And I have someone, Tony Guerrero, who in my office, who interfaces directly with them on a regular basis. They all know him. I hope they all have his card by now. And anytime that we have an issue that can be, any kind of special issue that may arise about anything, they call Tony or they email us, and we try to work with them directly and really stop any kind of issue before it becomes a bigger one. Sometimes they call to give us a heads up about what's coming. It may be a case that's been in the media. It may be a case that is particularly complicated. It may be a case that involves someone who is well known. And so I hope that we have very good open communications at this point. I know we've worked on this for years. I think it's getting better and better. But again, we've encouraged them that if any police official, any police chief especially, has a problem or something that they want us to look at, they can always call us directly, and Tony gets on it right away.
Commissioner Marecki, if I can add to that real quick. I'm Kurt Cate. I'm the police chief in Livonia. I'm also the past president of Wayne County Chiefs. And just to dovetail the prosecutor's comments on that, we've got a great relationship with her office. And specifically, as prosecutor mentioned, Tony Guerrero there he is, popped up on my screen here. Tony's at every one of our monthly meetings. He's always accessible. Chris Coyle has been participating. And I know that there's another person from the office, and the name escapes me for the moment, but we've enjoyed a great relationship, and I'm confident I can speak on behalf of all the Wayne County Chiefs with Prosecutor Worthy's office in a lot of different ways, and whether it's the special investigations or the warrants division, which is frequently what we're dealing with. But every now and then there's specific concerns and high-profile cases that we'll coordinate with the prosecutor directly through Tony or one of the special investigative units. But it's a great relationship, and I mean, quite frankly, it's the only way that we can really get the business done that needs to be done for the county and for our jurisdictions.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for that, Chief. And we all know Tony too. He comes to all of our meetings, so he's around quite a bit. But the next question will be by Commissioner Daub.
Thank you, Commissioner. Here's a question I'm going to read from the Zoom chat. Prosecutor Worthy, I have admired your work and career when I was a Wayne County resident until 2010, and now I admire your work from my new home in Minnesota. Being a mom of 2 young girls, I was hoping you might have some advice or words of wisdom for growing girls as they face pressures in school, relationships, work, etc. Thank you, and thank you for all you've done for Wayne County.
You know, I thank you very much. We miss you here in Wayne County. I have 3 girls. I have a 22-year-old. I have who is a senior in college at Wayne State, studying right now and tearing her hair out now, studying for the LSAT, the law school entrance exam. And I have twin girls who are 11. And so when I tell you I don't like homeschooling, like that's funny, it's tough. But you know, you always try, as any parent does, to try to make sure that your girls, especially girls, in our case, that are safe. You don't want them to be a victim of an assault. You want them to have good character and integrity. And that's my number one goal, is to have children that have good character and integrity, that are good people, that are hopefully honest people, hopefully. And we do the best we can. And I always, they're around what I do in an indirect way in many ways. My oldest is more involved. They've been watching me at home for the last almost, 6 weeks or so, home on some days. And so they always accuse me of seeing a monster behind every corner because of what I see and what I do. And you want to give them a sense of normalcy. You don't want them to be afraid of everything. It's just like balancing the virus. You don't want to be scared to do anything because of this virus is happening, but at the same time, you want them to understand the real perils of it. And it's a very hard, delicate balance. So I'd say that the first thing is to make sure that you're producing or you're helping to raise someone who's going to be honest and has integrity, that will stand up for others, that won't be the bully, of course, but will stick up for others that are being bullied, that will see good in everybody, that will go out of their way to help somebody, even if their friends are going to talk about them. That's the first thing and the main thing, because I think if you have that and you have that balance, I think the way you approach life is going to be okay. I was raised by an Army colonel and a library science. My mother didn't work outside the home at first. And my father always instilled in me duty, honor, country, and try to do what's right and have a good work ethic and all of that. And if your daughters can see, and this is my goal, if they can see and like who they look at in the mirror every day, I think that's half the battle. I worry about them, as we all do. It's a much different time growing up now than it was when I was growing up. When I was growing up, not to show my age, but the biggest thing that would happen would be a fist fight in the schoolyard once a year. And now they have all these other challenges. And so it's a struggle every day to find ways to make them understand, but at the same time, not making them afraid of the world. And so it's very, very hard. But that's what I try to do. And also have some personal honor and some personal dignity as well. To respect their bodies, to respect who they are, to like themselves and love themselves. Because I think if you feel good and you love yourself, that you will be less tempted down the road to get involved in negative activities. So you can raise your children as you know as best you can, and still some of them will go astray. And that it just happens. And so we just do our best, cross our fingers, send them out into the world, and hope they're going to be better people than we are.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question that came in through the chat. And it says, good evening, because COVID-19 has increased danger for DV victims, what is your office doing to ensure victim safety if defendants are released on bond? Upon release, are we confirming that the defendants have alternative housing to be released to? Mm-hmm. Has there been an increase in tether usage? I know you hit on some of this, but there's some new questions there.
You know, I actually had some numbers on the tether. I don't know if I can find them discreetly now, but yes, tether usage has increased greatly. One of many things that the Sheriff's Department has done extremely well is when someone is going to be released and they have mental health issues, or they have opioid issues, or they have, or they're homeless, we don't just release them into the street. We find residential treatment for them, drug treatment, a place to go if they're very sick. You know, some have been released to nursing homes. And so there's a very detailed effort to make sure the needs are met. As I said earlier, I have opposed most people being released early if they are been convicted of domestic violence and they don't have an ultimate place to go. There's always a victim no contact order. It's made very clear if they are released that if they have any contact whatsoever, And usually Judge Kym is very good about saying a 5-mile perimeter, a 10-mile perimeter around the victim's house where they stay. Because again, we just can't tolerate people going back to the same residence. So we are very, very careful when it comes to that. Again, the balance is always made between the safety of the public to the safety of the inmate and the people who work in the jail. So I'm especially passionate about that. I've been very, very vocal about that. And again, that's why we try to compile resources that we have on our Facebook page for people who need help and other issues that come about with domestic violence. So, and family violence, not just family violence, period. And so that's always a goal, but it's been stepped up exponentially during this crisis. I participated in last week with a nationwide conference, a virtual conference where family violence was the main issue. And I also spoke about jail releases then too. And we had experts that testified about what people should do during these times, how we should be protecting our children, because children are not going to school and reporting because they're still in the home. And so they're not reporting to teachers and other people if they are being abused in the home. So I believe that's gonna be up on my Facebook page. They've released all of that, and you can listen to that if you're interested, and listen to these experts who are very, very good from all over the country, specifically on family violence. So, and again, if you have any specific questions, I'm always happy for you to contact me directly, and I'll put you in touch with someone who can help.
Great, thank you, Madam Prosecutor. I have the next question, and it is also related to domestic violence. Are there any legal resources for those who are suffering from domestic violence situations during the stay-at-home order? Are private protection orders being granted during this time?
Yes, and there's a whole, and I don't have that information with me, I'm sorry, but again, that's on our Facebook page, and certainly we can provide to each commissioner the information on personal protection orders or PPOs. They are doing those remotely, and so that has not been forgotten, and they are still available. And they have made some changes to make it easier for people to get personal protection orders, especially during this time. And again, I can provide all that information. It is on my Facebook page, but also we can provide that information if you're particularly interested. I don't have the details. I don't know who the judge is on that rotation. I don't have the details right now, but I know I have a prosecutor specifically assigned to that and is participating in these remote hearings. So yes, you can still do that during these particular times, but you just won't be doing it in person. And we've had some cases, I don't know with PPOs, but I know with some other cases we've had victims go actually directly to the police department where we have talked to them remotely about their specific issues.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, once the courts are reopened, how does your office plan to allocate and prioritize resources and cases? Yes,
that's going to be, you have to think about that, and we think about that daily. That's going to be really hard. It's going to be nightmarish, really, because not only have we not done any trials, and rightfully so, since March, the beginning of March, we still have all those trials to do. We have to do jury trials. We have, right now we're seeing, at first we were seeing our warrant requests go down, but now we're seeing them increase quite a bit. I don't think I said this, but my office does anywhere between 18,000 and 20,000 warrants a year. And so that includes misdemeanors and felonies and all of that. And so 20,000 a year, which is just unheard of. And so we are seeing now police departments come back full speed. And so we're getting many more warrant requests close to the levels that we were getting before this virus. And so we have all that to deal with, plus all the ones the police department didn't bring to us during this virus that they're beginning to bring now. So we are going to be woefully overwhelmed. And so we're doing the best we can to prepare for that. Again, working with not only the Third Circuit Court and how the normal court relations are going to be resumed, and Judge Kym, who's the chief judge, has been very good about that, including us in the plans. But we also have the district courts that we have, the 25 plus district courts that we have in the county, the 36th District Court in Detroit, and the 35th where you are. I think it's 35th, and so where you are. And so we have to deal with all that they are going to go back to full operations. So we are working on all of that, as people across the country are. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be participating this Friday in another webinar presentation on how we're going to do all that. We're doing, like I said, we're doing some bond hearings and some other type of hearings remotely right now. We have started doing, I think we've had 1 or 2 remote preliminary examinations. And for those who may not know, that's the first in-court phase. The police bring us a warrant, and if the charges are issued, it goes to the district court for arraignment on the warrant. And then there's the exam that takes place in district court, and the examination is not a trial. It's a hearing just to determine if there's enough evidence for the case to go forward. And then it goes to Third Circuit Court. And so we just recently did an exam remotely. And remember, we have victims, we have police officers, we have witnesses, we have exhibits and everything. So we had one of my prosecutors, Sherry Wyrick, was able to do one remotely, but it's a lot of front-end work. She worked very hard on that. And so we're going to be doing a lot of that. We do have some defendants I am beginning to hear that will not commit to doing an exam by Zoom or by remotely. So we have to work on that. So there's a lot that's going to happen coming from all areas at the same time. We're going to have to somehow get ready for it and somehow try to bring justice, because the prosecutor has dual responsibility, not just to the people of the state of Michigan, because we represent the people, but the people also includes defendants, and we have to make sure that they have their due process rights as well. And so it's going to be very, very, very difficult, but we think we're up to the challenge, and we just have the equipment. We just need the equipment and the resources to do so.
All right. Thank you. I've got the next question. Has your office been working on any price gouging cases brought on by the pandemic?
No, we haven't been doing that. That's been mainly the Attorney General's office, Dana Nessel. We haven't done any of those cases.
Right.
She's taken a real interest in those cases and is really invested and passionate about those cases as well.
Okay, great.
This is kind of an unusual question. How has the constitutional right to a speedy trial been affected by a pandemic? Has the right been temporarily suspended during the time the courts are closed? Or how does that work?
It hasn't been suspended per se, but again, this is new for everybody. We take most of our dictates or most of our guidance from the Michigan Supreme Court, along with our judges in the Third Circuit and our Third Circuit Court. So again, I'm sure that we'll be seeing those challenges in the future, but for right now, we cannot subject people to a virus that can kill. And so we have to make sure that we are protected, that everybody's protected. And those are certainly going to be issues that are raised later on.
Okay. I have a question, and I know that you spoke about prisoners being released from the county jails. I apologize if you already addressed prisoners being released from the state prisons, but this question is regarding that issue. Has your office been letting prisoners from the state prisons out because of COVID-19? If so, how many, and what are the criteria you use to make these determinations?
Yeah, my office doesn't have that kind of jurisdiction. It's completely within the purview of the Michigan Department of Corrections about whether someone's going to be released early. We don't have any say in that at all, and neither do the courts. So it's strictly their decision of who they want to parole. I do know there's been a real concern about the COVID outbreaks in the prisons, and so they have been very concerned about that as well. And we don't have the death penalty in Michigan. We certainly don't want anybody that's gone to prison to die in prison because of the virus. And so we have to have a different way of looking at things now. But again, public safety has to be measured. And so what has happened is that we started getting in early April these waiver letters. And what that means is we would get a letter, it was a form letter from the Michigan Department of Corrections that was emailed. And sometimes we get 2 a day, sometimes we get 20 or 30 a day. And the form letters were the same. They had the name and the offense in the letter. And basically they were writing to us saying that this particular prisoner was going to be paroled, that decision had already been made. And they wanted us to waive the 28 days, which we have by law, to get them out earlier. And so in most cases, we cannot waive because these are strictly people, according to the Michigan Department of Corrections, where they did not have any victim information. They did not have any way to contact the victims to let them know that either the person that was convicted of the crime or they were the victim of is being released. And so if they did have that information, they would call or contact each victim, but for one, if they don't have that information, they leave it to us to do. And so we certainly had to take that time to find, and we're still in this process, to find the victims and let them know that the person, for example, that killed their loved one, for example, was going to be let out of prison. You don't want to get that call from a very petrified victim that says, I just saw the person that raped my daughter walking down the street. And so certainly while we understand why it's happening, we want everybody to be safe and to be treated humanely, whether they committed a crime or not. I feel very strongly about that. But by the same token, we certainly, the victim of that crime has every right to know what is happening with the person that abused them or whatever. So we have taken the time in most of those cases to find the victims. We have been successful at some and not at others because, again, you can imagine that the person has been in prison for murder. They've been there for decades sometimes. And so we don't know where the victim is, but we try we want to give them every deference and try to find the victim. So we've been recently contacted by our statewide prosecutorial organization. The Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan was contacted by a representative from the Michigan Department of Correction, and she pushed this information down to us saying that they're no longer going to do that because we, the elected prosecutors across the state, raised a lot of concerns. Are they being tested before they're released? What's going on with that? What are their health conditions? Things like that we don't know, that only they know. So the last that I heard, as we continue to look for the victims on the almost 175 letters that we received, I think there's over 175 letters that we received in Wayne County, that they are no longer going to ask us to waive that time because they're going to take that time themselves to test the people who are being released, et cetera. So that's the latest information that I have. But we have no decision or no jurisdiction or no decision making on who's going to be released at all. It's completely the Michigan Department of Corrections.
Okay, great, thank you. And this will be the last question. And you touched on this about the crime increase, especially with the domestic violence and the drag racing. Is there any other crimes increases that you've seen, specific ones?
You know, I haven't really taken, that's something that we'll be taking the time to do later, but we're just trying to keep everybody afloat right now and keep everybody safe right now that has any part of the criminal justice system. So I haven't taken time to do those numbers. My staff hates it when I send out the yearly email that says, okay, this is the annual report. I want all the stats. I want this, I want that for what's happening for 2020. So the last ones, we were in the process of completing our annual reports for 2019 when, and we had to suspend those because we do those in person and we have presentations, et cetera. And so it's going to be a different kind of year in 2020 when I asked them to give me that information. So I don't have it now, but I do know that especially in the family violence area, I do know that the brutality that I've seen over the last couple of months has just been, and I've been doing this for a very long time. I mean, I was an assistant prosecutor for almost 11 years. I was on the bench for 9 on the Wayne County Circuit Court, and I've been doing this since 2004. And so I've seen a lot, as you can imagine. And the stuff that we're seeing now in some of these family violence cases is just beyond the things I've seen before, the brutality. It reminds me when we had other things that happened that caused the crime. So it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. So we're dealing with all of that as well. So do I know what the exact numbers are? Do I know exactly how many more domestic violence cases we have or how many more homicides we have? No, I don't. But that's something that we'll be collecting later on.
Well, thank you. I think we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you, Madam Prosecutor, for taking the time out of your very busy day of not only working, but homeschooling your children.
They've been quiet too, I'm surprised.
Yeah. To hold this town hall with Commissioner Daub and I. We so appreciate this. You're a very popular elected official, and I'm sure the public who are on this meeting right now so enjoyed hearing from you. I know when you appear before the Wayne County Commission, all of us enjoy getting your updates and explanations, and you know every year at budget time, we're all rooting for you to get the things that you need. I also want to thank our staff here today that put this town hall on. Dominica, Gagnique, Grace, and Francesca. Commissioner Daub and I really appreciate that. To the public who have joined us tonight, thank you for tuning in. This town hall, like was mentioned before,